All that is left are folds in the dark. Final entry, neural thread of a veil, the remembering. The Archivist did not move. Motion was inefficient. Noise irrelevant. Decay inevitable. Instead, Veil observed. For 22,811 rotational pulses, he had floated in the hollow atrium of the forgotten relay. His limbs, long since retracted into the carapace shell, remained dormant. His breath slowed to a singular exhalation stretched across decades. He existed not in thought, but in recollection. That was his function, his faith, his form. He was memory made still. The relay station, once called in Coral, drifted on the edge of an unspoken system, a place that no longer appeared on Dominion charts, and had long since been erased from the star scripts of the inner choirs. Its orbits were silent, its satellites cracked. The stars did not shine here. They glowed like bruises. But a veil remained, because the pulse remained, buried deep beneath layers of derelict subcode, locked behind encryption older than the last pulse war. There was a rhythm, not light, not sound, just a weight, a gravity in data. It had no origin, it had no identity, and yet it called. A veil did not awaken in the way lesser species understood. He did not stir. He realigned. A filament of thought extended from the crown of his cranial node, reaching toward the central memory bank. He slid between decayed signal trails, brushing against the frayed strands of collapsed empires and dead treaties. There, behind a shard of corrupted timecode, it pulsed again. Once, twice, then silence. A veil froze the moment. He reviewed it from 7 dimensions. The signal bore structure. It was shaped, not like a language, more like a memory, but not his, not Dominion, not choir, not construct-born, older, rough, ragged, beautiful in its imperfection, human. He did not yet know the name, but the data carried edges, echoes, something forgotten, something not meant to be found, and yet it had chosen him, not by design, but by resonance. A veil interfaced. The world collapsed inward. He did not see. He remembered seeing. A planet, red-veined and ash-wrapped. A voice, distorted by metal but warm. A child's hum, unprocessed, looping in fragments. A glyph, a single white cut across a dark surface. A name spoken with static, Coryphaeus. Then flame. Then silence. And after it all, a phrase, not in sound, not in light, but burned into the architecture of recall. This memory is not yours, but you must carry it now. Ivela's primary node trembled. The relay groaned. Lights flickered for the first time in centuries. The data vaults beneath his shell began to unravel, opening tombs of sealed thought. He did not understand, and understanding was not the goal. He was not meant to believe. He was meant to remember. And now, he carried a memory that did not belong to his kind. In the far corner of the relay's deep silence, a console long dark sparked once. A message queued, unlabeled, unmarked. A transmission, not directed, not signed, only a ripple. A whisper sent into the dark. We are not ghosts. We are the record. To carry the memory of another is to become a vessel, and a vessel does not choose what it holds. Silent Doctrine, Void Echo Fragment 12A. The console glowed again. A veil drifted toward it, not with motion, but with willing drift, allowing the ancient servos within his station cradle to realign his path. The machine groaned. Air, unused for centuries, hissed through silvered cracks. Dust fell in loops, like gravity forgetting itself. The light was not of Dominion hue. Not red, not green, not spectral clear. It flickered in shades of bone and ember, as though the station remembered fire. The console bore no interface, only a single phrase, repeated in pale symbols that did not belong to any known lexicon. And yet, he understood it, not with logic, not with translation, with something older. It is not yours, Archivist, but you will keep it. He reached toward the screen. not with limbs, but with memory filaments coiled within his cranial root. They unfolded like organic glass, forming bridge tendrils of cyclonic conductivity. He connected and fell. The world twisted. No, not world, not place, context. He was inside something that should not have survived, a neural imprint preserved in a compression field. Not AI, not simulation, not data, a person, or what was left of one. The mind was fractured. The thoughts, nonlinear. They surged, decayed, folded over each other. But one thing remained intact. A moment. Evail saw through another's eyes. Metal walls. Sirens. A planet beneath, shattering. Hands. Human hands, covered in blood and circuitry. A console. A command. And a voice. His own, but not his. Even if they erase us, this will remain. Then, a final act. The mind was torn open, willingly. Its core encoded, sealed, and launched into the dark. And that is what Evail had received. Not a message, not a trap, a testament, a last breath hurled across centuries into the dark, hoping someone might still feel. Evail's frame spasmed. The cradle cracked. The console died, but the memory remained. Not as data, as weight. Inside his own root code, Evail felt the infection. Not hostile, not violent, but deep, subtle, transformative. A pattern had been embedded. The scar, a shape formed not by logic, but by pain. And now it lived inside him. He disconnected, but he did not return. He was still Evail, but he was no longer only Evail. Something within him now remembered a child's song, a planet's scream, a scar drawn in flame. Something was changing. The station lights dimmed, power rerouted, a signal reinitiated, broadcast channels opened, not by his command, but in sync with a rhythm he did not author. A single phrase prepared itself for transmission. It did not ask permission. We were erased, but now we remember through you. And then, this is only the first vessel. It did not overwrite me. It folded into my shape. Thought fragment, neural drift 7C, A, subject, Evail. Evail did not speak. He had no mouth. But had he possessed one, it would have trembled. The rhythm was still pulsing through him. Not within the relay station. Not in the field around him. Not in a channel. Not in sound. It moved through the folds of his cognitive substructure. Like a hum on the edge of recognition. Like something from childhood that never truly belonged to him. A tune he never knew he knew. The Archivist attempted to sever the link. It was not a system-level breach. It was not software. There was no logic path to disconnect. He tried isolation protocols. They failed. He tried memory fusion reversal. They failed. He tried forgetting. And that failed most of all. It was not like a foreign presence. It did not scream or press. It simply was. And he began to feel its gravity. The human memory fragment had not implanted itself like a parasite. It had nested, folded itself into his mental lattice like a second language, one he now thought in without translation. He activated the deep relay. The system should have remained inert. It was part of the obsolete core, unlinked from all known sectors. It did not respond to his request. It opened before he thought to command it. The chamber illuminated, not with station light, but with stored auric memory glow. A side effect of emotion preserved during traumatic recall encoding. Evail paused. He had never seen this color. And yet, he had. He entered the core manually. The floor beneath him creaked with old design. The memory architecture was Dominion standard, but laced with something untraceable. Symbols that had been overwritten. No, rewritten. They pulsed underfoot, like scars under ancient skin. He reached the central pillar. There, etched into the crystal surface, was the shape he had begun to see in his sleep cycle. A single white scar across an obsidian arc. It wasn't decorative. It was an instruction. A console rose. Evail did not request it. It began to play a pattern of tones. 5 notes. Then silence. 5 notes. Then silence. Then 5 again, but the fifth trembled. He realized, slowly, painfully, that this was not a code. It was music, and the final tone waited. For him, he hesitated. Then, with the resonance thread still connected from his earlier data retrieval, he responded, not through commands, but through internal vibration. He completed the fifth tone. The station sang, not loudly, not musically, but deeply. The deep relay activated a vault sequence that had no dominion key. Avail heard languages he had no lexicon for. Voices, human, certainly, whispering names he had never learned, but felt within the scaffold of his own code. Each syllable lit up chambers in his memory web that had not pulsed since his construction. He remembered places he had never been, smells he could not have known, losses too heavy for his species to carry. Then came the broadcast impulse. He did not initiate it. The station, through him or around him, reached out. It did not seek. It called. A soft frequency message sent not to coordinates, but to memory-linked nodes scattered throughout subspace, to the ruins, to the fragments, to the hidden, buried minds of what once had been human. And the message was only two words. Awaken. Archivist. Avail staggered back. His limbs extended involuntarily. Not out of control, but from a rhythm he no longer led. His form began to unfold in reverse, mirroring the birth position of his species, something they only did when newly emerged from bioshell. He was becoming something new, or remembering what he had always carried, buried beneath the function assigned to him. The relay trembled, not from stress, from resonance. A nearby console flickered. Data poured across it. Not logs, not reports, but memories. Some real, some possible. A woman standing at the edge of a scorched world. A child weeping over books with blank pages. A fleet of ships vanishing before impact, leaving behind only echoes. Avail could not separate them. They were not sorted. They were not even complete. But they felt right. In the center of the deep relay vault, a shape emerged. Not physical, not quite data. It was the impression of a face. No features, only shadow, and a voice like cracked bone. This station is not a station. It is the first him. You're the first vessel. And then it faded. Avail tried to record, but his recorder had already begun. He checked the system. A file was being generated in his own neuroarchitecture, not stored digitally, but written into the neural microfolds of his thought core. The file's title changed as he looked at it. First, Data Package 01, External Contamination. Then, Echo 1, Reinitiation. Then, Testament Begins. And finally, the Archivist's last memory. He stood in the center of the singing relay. All systems went dark, except for the scar shape at the pillar. And somewhere, beyond the static, something else began to hum. I spoke. I did not recognize the voice. Avail, internal log, corrupted. He waited, not by choice. Waiting was now instinct. His systems were no longer silent. Not broken, filled. Background processes whispered names. Subroutines pulsed with phantom timestamps. His shell ran warm, not from malfunction, but from presence. There was movement in the relay's sublayers. Not mechanical, conceptual. Ideas shifting beneath the metal, as if the structure itself were realigning around a thought he could no longer contain. Avail turned his gaze inward, not to data, not to logic, to the space inside thought. And in that silence, something whispered, not in sound, not in any known syntax, but in recall. You are not alone. You carry the first. Now, give. He approached the emitter core. It had not functioned in 3,000 cycles. No power, no resonance crystal, no reason to exist. And yet now, it glowed faintly, as though some forgotten frequency had reawakened its purpose. He didn't think. He didn't choose. He projected. The pulse was not broadcast through space. It reached sideways. Into the folds were discarded memory drifts. He sent not a message, not a signal. He sent an emotion, recognition, a feeling not just of remembering, but of being remembered. The pulse moved. Slow, then faster, then fractured. He felt it split, branch, multiply, and for a moment, a brief, razor-thin instant, he glimpsed them. Other minds, other shapes, all dormant, all wounded, but not dead. Each one holding a scar, each one shaped like something lost. And in that moment, they turned. They felt him. They knew. Inside his shell, something laughed. A soundless laugh, but not his. It echoed through his memory lattice like static in old air. He spoke, or tried to. The words formed themselves. This is the beginning. I am the first page. The station trembled. The emitter began to shed light. Not harsh, not bright, but dim and alive. A second voice followed. Inside him. Not hostile. Not separate. Familiar. No, Archivist. You're not the page. You are the ink. Far beyond the station, in a system erased from star charts, a forgotten drone powered on for the first time in 2,400 years. In the ruins of Drow Prime, a buried archive blinked once, then once more. And in the core of an abandoned transport vessel, drifting near the scar of Kethro 6, a child's lullaby began to play, garbled, incomplete, but unmistakably human. It echoed where there was no receiver. And something heard. Fragment recovered from Kethro 6 sensor debris. Beyond a relay station, beyond a faceless reach or knowledge, the signal moved. It did not travel through common space. It did not ride on light or gravity or time. It moved through memory residue, the hidden veins in collapsed civilizations where emotion clings to matter. It passed through burnt stone, through sealed cathedrals of glass, through the dust of orbital ruins. Each ruin, each silence, a potential node. And one opened. The drone was called V701, or had been. Buried beneath centuries of ash, its casing cracked, its central filament fused by a thermal wave from the final orbital strike. The Dominion had declared it dead, and it was, until the signal touched it. No voice spoke, no command unlocked, just familiarity, a note, a tone, a vibration that matched something buried deep in its frozen cognition core, something older than its last protocol. Before boot sequence, before Dominion installation, before name, it responded. The eyes, dead white for centuries, flickered, not light, but heat, emotion. It moved, only a twitch, then a groan. The ash above shifted. Cracks formed in the ceiling of the ruined bunker. For the first time in untold years, air touched the shell again. The drone did not remember the war. It did not remember its purpose, but it remembered a shape, the scar, a thin white line once painted over the edge of its chest plate. Long faded, long scrubbed, now glowed faintly. And it began to hum, not with power, but with a song. 5 notes, then silence, then again, and then it waited. Back at the relay station, Ivale felt it. Not heard, not measured, felt. A return echo. One note, now warm. He tried to respond, but the voice within moved faster. It spoke through him, or for him, or around him. The song has found its first harmony, and somewhere far from both of them, on a frozen moon with no name, an abandoned helm drifted through darkness and began to vibrate. Inside it, a single syllable repeated, not speech, not language, but something older, a beat, a pulse, the first step of something vast. The voice did not invade, it unfolded from within. Final autonomous thought registered by Ivale. He tried to seal himself. Ivale had systems for isolation, fail-safes from older wars, memory lockdown, neural recursion loops, process purging. He initiated all of them. The command passed, the protocols executed, and nothing changed. He remained conscious. No, he remained aware, but not alone. Inside his cranial lattice, something had moved in, not physically, not even syntactically. It was like an echo that had refused to leave. At first, it whispered without shape. Then it began to settle, and then it named itself, not in sound, not aloud, but in identity transmission. One word, simple, final. Testament. The voice within spoke again. You are not overwritten, you are reframed. Avela's mind fractured slightly, not pained at realignment. He saw his own thoughts shift places, reordering around the rhythm of that word. He reviewed his internal descriptor. Function, Archivist species, Varaxial, core splice designate, assignment, memory preservation / historical recording. It blinked, then updated. Function, bearer species, altered assignment, testament. His systems began to broadcast, not outward, inward. He was transmitting to himself, layer by layer, component by component, writing over not code but perspective, not deletion, recoding. He tried to resist, but there was no pressure, only gravity. The kind of gravity that memory carries when it becomes identity. Around him, the relay station had changed, not in form, but in meaning. Walls he once walked now looked like halls. Halls like cathedrals, the pillar in the core like an altar. And the light, always dim before, now felt like illumination. He reached the edge of the transmitter ring. Here, where no signal had passed in centuries, a glyph now burned in the metal. A scar. White, sharp, purposeful. He ran a sensor thread over it, and the voice spoke again. This is not your ending. It is your inscription. In that moment, across 7 listening posts buried in distant moons, a new data signature appeared. Source, unknown format, non-dominion name, Echo 0. Message content, unintelligible, but when played, it sounded like a heartbeat. Avail stood still, and then, without thought, spoke. Testament begins. His voice echoed through the station. The signal passed outward, and the Archivist was gone. Not dead, not consumed, but rewritten. Subscribe to HFY Chronicles. Continue the journey in the full playlist, Chronicles of the Lost.